You're watching the Politicit Podcast.
Good evening. Welcome to Politicit Podcast. I'm Senator John Johnson. We've got Jeremy Peterson with us tonight. Nice of you to come.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Good to talk some politics.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to talk about.
A lot? Yes, quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, what was your impression of the election?
Well, I was taken aback at the results. I would say that I didn't anticipate most of what I saw coming out of the polls on election night. My first take, having a chance to chew on it for a minute, is that occasionally the voters like to come out and turn over the compost pile.
Yeah.
There were some.
This was certainly a year for that.
Yeah,
I would think.
Yeah, there was some. A lot of energy, I guess, in the base. And speaking of the Republican base, I think also the Democrats were energized in Salt Lake by the redistricting and having a shot at a congressional seat this year. But I think particularly in Weber County, there was a lot of energy. There was a lot of maybe some building up resentment and some things in the electorate this year.
Yeah, the one that kind of hit me was I thought Bolos was going to win for the commission seat.
That floored me. I didn't see that coming. She had the incumbent advantage. She wasn't involved in any major scandals that I could think of, and she's a good person. There was no reason to complain. And usually, if that's the case, an incumbent's going to prevail.
Right.
A challenger's going to have a hard time with that. But in this case, Beasley, and I don't know Beasley, so I can't speak to his record or character or whatnot. But a lot of voters really liked what he had to offer, and that was a surprise. In looking at the precinct records or the voting, how the results came in precincts. Beasley, of course, did really well in the rural areas of the county, but even in the urban areas where Bolos prevailed in some cases, or in the more higher suburban areas, she didn't prevail by much.
Right.
It was a fairly close contest with her winning in those precincts.
And she would have had to win those by quite a bit more.
Yes, yeah, she needed to really push it over the top in those, and so
two former mayors.
Yeah, two former mayors. Bolos kind of has a political family. They're involved in government in the county, and well-known family. Obviously, Beasley's well-known in Plain City, and
that one surprised me. Actually.
Yeah, I just thought, hey, does somebody know something I don't? What's going on here?
So that was the one you expected the least.
That was the one I expected the least. Although there was an interesting development on election night where KSL published. They probably published this about 1-2 o'clock in the afternoon, so well before polls closed.
Right.
But it was an article basically with the headline that Weber County Commission approves tax increase for sales tax, and I read that and I'm like, oh, timing on this. Now they didn't name her by name, but just Weber County Commission, that label.
And property taxes were a big thing to people. I think that was an issue that was a big deal. That there was an anti-incumbent feeling, I think, and all those kind of added up to.
Well, yeah, property taxes are a huge thing. I work in the real estate business, and we talk about them regularly.
Right.
And just how significant they are as a portion of the cost of ownership right now. And I think people are kind of reaching a point, generally that they're pinched, their wallets are pinched, and every little bit counts. And now they're kind of starting to scream. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're ready for a tax revolt, but they're not. I would say they're not going to be very tolerant of anything that's going to affect.
Well, my election last time around, that was the number one issue. was property taxes. When I did pretty extensive polling, that was the major issue, and so I know that carried into this year. But it's interesting up in Box Elder County.
So Lee Perry, I love Lee.
Yeah, I do too.
Lee sat next to me on the House floor when I was in the legislature. He and I were freshmen together, and it was great. I love Lee. And to see him retire from the legislature and then go serve as a county commissioner there, that seemed like a natural fit for him, and he's a great leader. And I was impressed with how he handled himself during the whole data center controversy, just because of all the spit and vinegar and anger that was focused at him. Sometimes it's hard to keep your cool in that kind of environment, and he did really well. But the people in Box Elder County were maybe not as upset as some of the folks outside of Box Elder, but still enough that he couldn't keep his seat.
Yeah, both of them lost.
Yeah, it was that was kryptonite, political kryptonite this year, for sure.
Yeah, which to me is interesting, because I really, politically, I really don't understand the sentiment. I can certainly see the sentiment against MIDA and other things, but the data center thing, one of the major issues was, where are they going to get the water? And you just think, well, that's kind of an old problem with data centers. It's really not that big an issue as it was.
Have you ever seen a movie where AI is the hero?
That's true.
No, we all saw Terminator. We know how that turns out.
Right.
I mean, So, I think part of the challenge is that the change is happening a lot faster than people are used to. When the internet came on board, we started out with modems, and then we dabbled in AOL for a year or two, and then Netscape came around for 2 or 3 years, and we sort of eased into the internet, and it's progressed since then. Here, it's like AI is suddenly within a matter of months, and things are changing, and now there's talk that that hey, people who've been employed for a career might become obsolescent. And so I think there's just in the very back of people's minds, there's this fear of that rapid change and the unknown.
Right.
And the data center is a symbol of that.
Yeah.
It's a symbol of that. And so a gentleman from Microsoft, I can't remember his name, but he said that basically society needs to buy into the AI situation, and there hasn't been enough time for that buy-in to happen yet.
Right.
And so it needs to be sold to the public, and it might be that we get a year into the future and everything's great, and electricity costs are the same or go down, and all of our worst fears don't materialize, and everyone's like, oh yeah, it's great. But meanwhile, all this carnage from before is...
Well, it kind of surprises me that became an issue so quickly in the election year, right? I mean, I don't know. If I'd have been involved with it, I think I would have said, let's just wait till after this election.
Yeah, well, and there must have been a decision made that it wasn't going to be that big of a deal.
Right.
Right, like, hey, this is good for the economy, it's good for our strategic position.
Well, there are other data centers in Utah that are moving ahead pretty quickly.
Yeah. It's a box with some electrons in it, and what's the big deal? Right. Like that's, But
the scope of that project was huge. Of course, I think the process was what really bothered people.
Yeah. And the scale of, when they're talking about hyperscale.
Right.
We're talking about, 40,000 square acres of, I guess an acre is square, but 40,000 acres of land, that's square mileage, right? Like that's a lot of infrastructure, and like you call that a mega project, right? And so mega projects have impacts that regular projects don't necessarily.
Yeah, that whole thing. I mean, that's probably one of the reasons why Stuart Adams lost.
I would say it probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
he was spearheading it, and I don't know that he could dissociate himself from Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah.
That
was kind of a rough thing. Well, he tried by asking him to cut it way down, right? Cut the scope of it.
And Kevin was cast as a villain in this situation, so in the story, he was the bad guy, kind of the baron in the background trying to make things happen. It's not his state, not his water, not his land, so he's just going to do what he wants. And that I think that idea was just really hard to overcome emotionally for a lot of folks. And but also, I mean, at the same time,
well, come to find out, it was a progressive group behind his opponent.
Right.
Which is actually kind of surprising. I don't think she is a progressive, but it certainly, I mean, her campaign staff was.
Well, and what's also interesting about this is that the data center issue was also bipartisan, that a lot of Republicans were also freaked out by this project.
Right.
And I was having those conversations where I'm a person that likes to kind of just watch and see and not necessarily rush to judgment on an issue. And I could see the hyperbole coming out of this issue so quickly. I was like, okay, there's a lot of bad information here with as high as emotions are, but a lot of Republicans that that I figured would be in support of economic development and jobs and technological advancement were really hesitant to support the project. And when I heard that, I'm like, okay, this is a
big issue.
Yeah, big issue. Something else is going on here, besides just a partisan thing.
Well, we're going to take a break, and we'll come back.
Tired of media bias? Frustrated by political noise? Politicit.com cuts through the clutter, giving you real facts, clear analysis, and unbiased insight on the issues that matter most. Stay informed, stay empowered. Whether it's elections, policy changes, or breaking news, we've got you covered. No spin, no agendas, just truth you can trust. Visit Politicit.com today, because informed citizens shape the future. Politicit.com, where politics meets clarity.
Welcome back to Politicit. We're talking with Jeremy Peterson. Let's go to the other Weber County race, the other commission race.
Yeah, so County Commission seat A. So this, from the very beginning, this was going to be it was going to be a wild ride because we had to get through convention.
Right.
And the convention was a real mess, right? You were there.
No, I was actually out of town.
Oh, you were out of town. Okay, yeah. So we got into the voting, and obviously Katrina Gibson and James Ebert were signature candidates, and the delegates there kind of maligned them. They were like, "We're not going to vote for you because these other candidates really, need our support." So it came down to a contest between Kearsley and Heyer, and Kearsley came out on top, but not enough to just run away with it.
Right.
And so both him and Heyer were going to go to the primary together. Well, there was some confusion in the bylaws during that vote counting process, and so the members of the bylaw committee got up there and started protesting what was happening, citing some rules. Meanwhile, leadership of the party was citing rules, that were also there, and there was some confusion, and the whole convention fell into confusion.
Right.
Like there were some new delegates sitting in front of me, and they're turning around asking me, "What's going on?" And I'm just shaking my head, because you've got folks using Robert's rules to throw a wrench into things to try to tip things one way or the other. And anyway, it was a big mess, and ultimately Rich Heyer and Dwayne Kearsley went to the primary ballot. Now, this provided it was fascinating to me to see with these four candidates, because each of them came with their own their own stuff.
Right.
So you've got Katrina Gibson, wife of former county commissioner Gibson, and then you have James Ebert, who's back for a second bite of the apple as county commissioner, and they both came into the race as kind of trying to present a clean slate, saying, okay, we're refreshed, we're new to the situation, and we're not going to really talk about all that water that's under the bridge at this point. But those of us that are in the electorate still remember all the history from that, and so it was kind of hard to look at it with with a fresh set of eyes, given the history. And so those two were definitely going to go head to head against each other based on the history. And then you've got Rich Heyer, who comes from Ogden City Council, and there hasn't been someone from Ogden City who's sat on the Weber Commission since Bischoff. So it's been
a while,
a long time. Yeah, and in fact, it's been 20 years. And so Rich is coming into that race, trying to cross that bridge, and then you have Dwayne, who's kind of unknown, who's a county employee working over at the Golden Spike Event Center. Seems like a nice guy, inexperienced in the political arena, and he just kind of shows up. So the delegates are vetting these folks, and you've got, by my calculus, I was looking at it, and I endorsed Rich. Rich is a friend, and I want to see somebody from Ogden City on the Weber County Commission, because I think that will help unify the county. But I was looking at it from the calculus of baggage to experience ratio, and it's like, okay, Rich is my guy, and so, but Dwayne came in with,
which is surprising because he got beat the worst, right?
He did. He performed the least out of all the candidates, and I'm still scratching my head. My hunch is that he didn't raise enough money to do all the messaging that he needed to do. I received probably 7 or 8 Gibson postcards, and I received a couple of hires. So when you're getting that message out repeatedly, repetition is good marketing, and so those other candidates were doing well with that. But curiously, didn't really have all that money either, and he still prevailed. And I think part of it was that the voters wanted a fresh start. I think they just said, okay, there's history with all of these other candidates, even though they have experience, let's just give it to somebody new and see what happens, and Dwayne.
Well, you had that lawsuit in the middle of it too, that just kind of.
Yeah, the lawsuit
was odd.
The lawsuit was odd. I don't know if it was wise. The judge obviously is like, the voters need access to a candidate. We're going to put it on the ballot. And trying to get somebody in a technicality in this kind of environment, I don't think is wise. And the voters, that could have turned them off. How much it hurt? Maybe a few percentage points, maybe. But no, very surprising. And looking at the precincts, there was no real consistent place where one candidate just overwhelmingly took one spot. It was very patchy all over the county, and I couldn't.
Well, and you looked at the data afterwards, didn't you?
Yeah. Last night I was scanning it, and I'm like, there's no real pattern here that I can see of, hey, this person in this community in particular support this one person. It was all very divided, and there obviously Dwayne was winning more in a lot of different places. Marginally, it wasn't a blowout. In a few places it was, but it was a blowout for other candidates in a few other places as well. It didn't seem predictable to me. And so part of me wonders if maybe a ranked choice voting regime would have been
better,
appropriate here. Yeah.
Well, I think we need to do something about that plurality problem, and that I just think there's, in a race like that.
Yeah.
And, that probably played into Stuart Adams' race as well.
Well, Stewart had two opponents, and one of the opponents aligned more with him ideologically,
Right.
and so that pulled support away, from his numbers and split his.
Who ended up losing.
Yeah, and he ended up losing because of that. It's kind of like the Ross Perot effect,
Right.
One of the in talking about getting down to two candidates at the primary, we had this discussion after the convention, and one of the things that Washington County did this last year was that they raised their voting threshold to go to the primary ballot as the sole candidate from convention. They raised that threshold to 70% from 60.
Oh.
And so what happened is they had no signature gathering candidates this year.
Right.
And because they all the ones that would gather signatures figured, hey, I've got a respectable shot at the convention.
Right.
And so kicking it up to 70% almost guarantees a primary,
Right.
unless you just have a superstar candidate out there. But that gets rid of the signature gathering problem too.
Right.
And it creates an incentive, because all these signature gathering candidates all that they want is access to the primary.
Right.
And if that incentive can be removed, that makes the convention more healthy and furthers that process. So food for thought for the future.
Well, and that whole SB 54 thing, I think, I think we ended up really with the worst of all possible worlds out of that process.
Well, we all hate each other for it, right? Like we're in these separate tribes of.
If you gather signatures, you're not gonna compete at the convention, which is stupid in a way.
Right.
Right.
Right, and it also confuses the delegates, because they're like, well, why are they here if they gather signatures? I don't understand why are we voting for them? And at the end of the day, we have to have. This is probably a whole separate podcast discussion, but at the end of the day, as a party, we need to really have a healthy discussion about what do we want. Like, what is the whole purpose of a primary? What is the purpose of the convention?
Right.
What do we want those?
We're getting short on time, but are there any other races in the state you think kind of stand out?
So the Dan McKay race where he lost, I was Dan McKay's vice chair on the Rev and Tax Committee.
Oh, you were?
And sat as a wingman to him there. And Dan's also a great leader, sharp guy, very smart.
Very conservative.
Very conservative, yes, very conservative. And I was stunned to see that he lost.
Yeah.
Just because of his record and his dedication and just how much good he does. But he had a very charismatic opponent who's also conservative and and very likable. Right. And so really, I think it just came down to a popularity contest between the two of them. And,
I think that was quite a race. Brady Brammer's race ended up being closer than I would have thought.
Yeah, Brady's also staunchly conservative.
Yeah.
And he's had significant winnings in the past, but this past year, his race looked more like mine did in the past, where it was 55-45.
Right.
That kind of a split. I became comfortable with those numbers in the past, but for him, that probably makes him nervous.
Right. And that was a case where he has a very conservative district, and his opponent wasn't exactly a staunch conservative, right? And so it was kind of surprising. But he's still.
Well, we have a lot of people moving into Utah County, so
yeah.
Nobody checks their cards at the border.
That's true. Well, so any advice maybe from you?
Oh man. Well, for those running for office, I would say talk to the electorate, figure out what the issues are, and do your homework before you run.
Yeah.
Because things are definitely changing. You can feel it.
Yeah.
Out there. There's a certain sense of
more money coming into the state from the outside.
More money.
You could see that in the Adams race clearly.
And since I left the legislature, the national political divide has permeated even down to the local levels now. And that's where that's a new development in the last 6-7 years that it's a new thing in trying to navigate the politics. It used to be, your city council races were about, literally about roads and
Right.
and local initiatives, and now we're seeing things like like ICE and
Right.
and other issues being infused into local politics, and it's definitely more toxic than it's been in the past, and it's going to require candidates that can have a stiff upper lip in spite of all of that.
Well, yeah. Well, and the data center thing. I mean, that ended up playing big.
Yeah, that was sudden death.
Right.
It was sudden death to be associated with it, and I think the voters were more like shoot now, ask questions later.
Right.
They just weren't going to put up with it, and so we just got to be as aspiring leaders. People need to be more attuned to what's going on out there.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, great having you in.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We'll see you guys next week.